Hi, I'm going to show you a few things that we do to analyze races. And this race that we've got on the screen right now is a 200 breaststroke at Purdue towards the end of June. And this swimmer went 2:37.5. And I want to kind of go through and show you some of the things that we're looking at when we analyze a race and then some of the adjustments we want to make. And then I'll compare it to a swim that he did about a month later at Junior Nationals, and he was considerably faster. First thing we want to look at is the time underwater. He was 5.72 here, and he had a breakout distance of 11.68, which is pretty good. He has 15-meter time of 7.3, and that's not too bad for breaststroke. This graph dictates the stroke rate. And you can see I had a high stroke rate on this 50 of a 1.1 and a slow of 1.4. His average was 1.30. And he has a tendency to sometimes go out way too fast, and then it suffers at the end of the race for him. So 1.3 average stroke rate here. He took 20 cycles, which I think is a lot for a 50 breaststroke. His distance per cycle was 1.92, which is not too bad. His second length, this yellow dictates turn time. He was 1.38, and that's not really bad. We're really trying to be in the 1.0 to 1.2 range for breaststroke turns. Breakout distance was 8.35, and I think that's good. It took him 4.6 seconds to do it, so not too bad. 22 cycles, distance per cycle is 1.8, so you can see he's dropping off distance per cycle a little bit. He did settle into a little bit of a slower stroke rate, which I think is really good, and his velocity here is slowing down a little bit as well. His third turn was 1.61, and I think some of the reason that turn was so slow is because he took so many strokes his first length, and he's starting to really get tired, so he hung on the wall a little bit longer. And you can see distance for his breakout was a little bit less. 22 cycles, just like he did the second length, so he's trying to establish a good pace. 1.9 on his distance per cycle, which is pretty good. It's actually a little bit better than he was the other one. So he's starting to swim a little bit more efficiently. Stroke rate was 1.6, so he is a little bit longer now, slowing down slightly on his velocity. His third turn, 1.6 again. Really, we need to work on that some. And again, he's 7.8 meters on this pull out on the breakout, so we'd really like him if we can be over 8 on these. And again, 22 cycles, so he is staying relatively consistent there. 1.9 on his distance per cycle. An average stroke rate of 1.55, so he's trying to speed up a little bit to the finish. And here you can see that his stroke rate started really slowing down. And lots of times swimmers will, in an effort to land on a full stroke at the wall, they will start to slow down to try to time it. And I think that's what he did here. This next slide that you see, the top bar is the first 50 of the swim that we just showed you at Purdue. The second bar underneath it is the first 50 about a month later at Junior Nationals, and we want to show you some of the corrections that we made. We felt like if he could slow down his stroke rate a little bit and stay a little bit longer, stay a little streamlined longer, that we were going to have better distance per cycle and hopefully take less strokes so that he'd be able to have a better second half of his race. His breakout at Purdue, you see, was 11.68, which we said was awfully good. He was 11.86 here, so he was a little bit further, and he got there a little bit faster. He was 5.7 here and 5.5 on his breakout at Junior Nationals. But what's really impressive is at Purdue he was 7.3 here at the 15 meter, and he was 6.4, so almost a full second faster at the 15-meter mark at Junior Nationals. And some of that certainly has to do with being shaved and being in a suit, but that's awfully fast getting to 15 meters. Big thing that jumps out at you is that he had an average stroke rate at Purdue of 1.3. Here it was 1.5, so he stayed disciplined and he took 4 strokes less, 16 instead of the 20 that he did, and he had a much greater distance per cycle, 2.38 versus the 1.92. So he's swimming much, much more efficiently. You can see he was a little slower on this turn, and that's something that we have really been trying to work on. It did help him later in the race, but he was just about the same, maybe a little slower on this turn. We said we'd like that turn to be more like 1.0, 1.2. Here he was just a little bit off the breakout distance that he was at Purdue, so that is something that we still need to work on. But he did remain disciplined here, and you can see he took 17 cycles instead of 22, and he's still at 2.48 distance per cycle, which is really good. And he slowed down his stroke rate so he can stay more efficient. So you can tell that he's really has a nice long stroke. He's got a good body position. He's holding the line really well, and his velocity is staying faster. Now this turn, you can see he made up a big difference here, 1.6 to 1.2. And I think some of that is because he was swimming more within himself and didn't have a real rushed stroke, that he was able to get off that wall a little faster. What I'm happy with here too is that he was back over 8 meters on his breakout distance. You know, he was 7.5 at Purdue, so I'm real happy about that, and especially because it's later in the race. 18 cycles versus the 22, still 2.3 distance per cycle, which is really great, and holding that stroke rate again at 1.7, so he's really swimming a very controlled race at this point. Okay, in this last turn, again you can see he's still quite a bit faster, 1.3 to 1.6, so good there, and he had a great pullout and a breakout here of 8.1. So if we can keep this over 8 meters, we're really happy. 20 strokes versus the 22, and his distance per cycle is still 2.0, so I think that's really good. Still higher than he was here. He picked up the stroke rate a little bit, almost the same as he was at Purdue, because he's trying to really have a great split here and see if he can get home and race the field. Still has a velocity that's faster, and his total time, you can see, was actually about 12 seconds faster than he was at Purdue. So it's really a very controlled race. The only bad side of this is, again, he still slowed down in preparation to the finish like he did at Purdue. So that's something that we still have to work on with him, as well as his turns and his pullout. But he is swimming a much smarter race, and I think that really helped him here, and it's going to help him in the future. And SwimHero does allow you to really analyze a race and compare it, which is so helpful, and I think the kids really understand it as well.